This is the Working Title Show with Zach Sams, except today Zach is not here. It's Brendan Lewis. I am Vice President of Business Development at Kensington Vanguard, and I am subbing in for Zach. So hopefully this goes well. Today with me I have Harrison Polsky. He is the principal of the One Group at Compass, and it's good to have you on the show.
Thanks, buddy.
So what's new?
Every day is a different day.
Every day's a different day. But things are going well in Texas.
Things are going very well in Texas.
Yeah.
Except for the weather. But
The weather's not been good, yeah.
That's terrible.
Just got actually some numbers from, we try to have a positive outlook on this show. And it's not that hard to do in North Texas, but we just got some numbers from the first quarter of 2019. Housing market in the Dallas area remains very robust. Mm-hmm. And we've got 100, can you believe 100,000 new jobs in Dallas in 2018?
That's crazy.
It's a tremendous amount of jobs. Unemployment remains lowest levels in 15 years, something like 3.5% unemployment, very, very low. And 34,000 in 2018, 34,000 single family home starts.
That's considering the whole DFW metro.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And from 2000, this is a number that actually was more interesting to me. Since 2010, we've had 800,000 new jobs in DFW. So tremendous growth. So it's positive. Everything's good in North Texas. We have, what was the other thing I was looking at too here? U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics was 10%, and this is something you probably attest to, 10% just in Texas residential building permits up, single family, a considerable amount, but multifamily was increase of 10%.
You're welcome.
Since last year. So maybe you have something to do with that.
A little bit.
A little bit. So tell us about what are you working on? What's your specialties? What are you what in the market? Where do you fit in?
So currently, we have a team of 6. Most of us focus in the Park Cities area, Preston Hollow area. I do a lot of new construction, mainly multifamily townhomes, which are declared as condos, but we do anywhere from 50 to 70 units here.
How did you fall into that?
Honestly, I think it's just because I have a commercial background, and because of that commercial background, I'm a little bit more numbers oriented, plus my family was in construction for a while. And honestly, I just like it. It's a totally different type of sales. It's not like a resale space where you have a lot of emotions involved. It's strictly down to the numbers, it's down to the grind, and it's just honestly a lot more fun.
And how do you, where are you finding it, is it a challenge to price these units when it comes to, bringing them to market, and how do you kind of come up with that?
Honestly, I spend a lot of time looking at other product and walking other product and understanding who the builders are, what they bought the dirt for, what they're finishing it out with, and really understanding the whole entire picture, because a lot of people want to go off the dollar per square foot, but that's not really how it works. There's a lot of more things involved in pricing, that a lot of intangible values in a product that a lot of people don't take into consideration or lack thereof. So I think that when we know these kind of things, we get to better pricing.
And how do you feel like the consumers, the buyers are savvy? Do you think that they're, because of the age we live in with, all the internet and all the tools at their disposal they didn't have, say, 10 years ago? Oh,
absolutely. I mean, every time, we're doing sales on a new development, the buyers are always looking at everything online. They're telling me what the dollar per square foots are, but I mean, they know a lot more. They're a lot more savvy. They definitely have higher expectations than they used to have on quality of product. And we're definitely seeing that change. And you think that
is it difficult for you to persuade your clients to go in that direction?
No, not really. I think that, once they start to understand, and I call it the HGTV effect, but, every time a trend changes, it's just like music, the buyers move on to a new trend, right? So if we're not following those trends and understanding that, then, we're not going to get played.
That makes sense. And so tell us what about resale? What's resale like in Park Cities?
I think resale is feeling the same thing. I think that, buyers now, where homes used to have a longer shelf life, they're having a lot shorter shelf life because trends change so fast. So there's many houses out there that are gorgeous houses on great lots, but people are like, I don't like this wood. You can easily tell a house from the early 2000s, or a house from 2008, a house from 2014, just by the way that it's designed and laid out. And buyers nowadays are a lot more pickier. I mean, they don't necessarily care so much about lot value and location. And I think that's changing a lot.
And so how do you kind of, how do you kind of maybe recenter their focus and try to get them into maybe considering those things? Because you can change the rest of it. I mean, I was a real estate broker for many years, but the industry has changed quite a bit since I've been in it. But you try to, as an agent for the most part, and I was an investor also, you can see past those things, right? I mean,
Correct.
You're able to understand that you can change the floors, you can stain the floors, whatever. But that when it comes to resale, schools, location, all these kind of things are more important. So how do you kind of refocus their attention? Or
I think the question is, at the end of the day, why are you really buying the property, right? Are you buying the property for an investment, or are you buying it for standard of living, or is it a combination of the two? Because honestly, unless you're Warren Buffett or Mark Cuban or any of those kind of people, you're really not going to get all of those things at the same time. So you kind of have to figure out what the buyer's main goal is, and then you try to work it out. And if those goals aren't really aligned with that property, then it just is what it is. I mean, you can try to explain things to them, but sometimes they just don't want to hear it. Some buyers rather go spend money on a house where the lot's worth nothing, or some people rather buy where the lot's worth everything, the house worth nothing. It just depends.
this is just a little bit off topic. What is one of your least favorite design faux pas maybe that you see in homes these days?
Honestly, I'm kind of sick and tired of those open concept living rooms. They're kind of getting boring to me, and then they're all the same. It's always the same.
Sort of the great room, like
yeah,
kitchen.
It's the great room. I mean, that's cool and everything, for a party, but at the end of the day, to live there every single day, I don't want to, see my dishes and everything in the kitchen while I'm watching TV. I just don't like it.
And what about a concept you'd like to see more of, but you haven't seen maybe as much of?
I think just the high modern feel is just it gets dated so fast. Like I said, I could tell what a 2016 quote unquote modern home was opposed to now. And I think that people need to think a little bit more timeless than thinking about what's really cool right now. I think that's the major problem. It's like everyone's so hooked on what's hot.
Trend,
Yeah, and it's got to stop. It's insanity.
All right, well, we will take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the company that you work for, and we'll talk about the other things. Compass. This is the Working Title Show with your guest host, Brendan Lewis. And we are back with Harrison from Compass. Thanks for coming back. Thanks for sticking around.
Thanks, buddy.
Let's talk about Compass.
Yeah.
So, how are they they're doing things different. I'm noticing, just from a standpoint of just driving around in North Texas, specifically in the Park Cities area, just the sheer number of signs.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's absolutely.
And the number of people that I know who I've been in North Texas and Texas for 5 years now, and pretty much everybody I knew who was a broker or an agent in that time period, they've now all gone to Compass, and one of them just went over just last week or the week before. So
Great.
it's definitely growing. So tell us more about it.
I think in the last year it's really grown tremendously. Obviously, we're now the number one solely owned brokerage in the United States. We're number 3 by sales volume. That's all according to Real Trends, so that's real data. I think a lot of people are just gravitating towards it because it's more youthful, and it's really the culture that gets you excited. I think a lot of these older brokerages, I love a lot of them. They're very boutique-y, they're very high-end, but sometimes you're in a very Hunger Game type atmosphere, whereas Compass very much discourages that. They very much encourage collaboration and working with other people in your office without any ego. And if you do kind of go in that direction, they're like, no, stop. And that's really comforting, because in this business, it's so cutthroat as it is that you don't really want to go into an office where you feel that same thing. And I think that's the big difference.
So I actually had some statistics which Harrison informed me were out of date, and they're not that old. They were from December of 18. but some statistics about Compass, founded in 2012. At that time, in 2018, they had 165 offices, 7,000 agents, 13 states, 80 cities, and over 1,000 employees. Since then, we couldn't quite get all the numbers, but since then,
they were close to 240, almost 15,
offices.
17, yeah, 245
so
offices.
it's significant. Yeah,
It's crazy.
Significant increase.
It's crazy.
And Compass's business model, quote, a national network of local experts.
Yeah,
Is
I
that
think
something?
so.
Is that right?
I think so. I think they really do a great job with recruiting and making sure they're not just throwing bodies at it. And I think most of the people in there, their average sales volume when we first started, I don't think there were agents producing less than 7-8 million a year, which is, puts you in the top 3%. So, I mean, most of the people that are up there, we're competing in the 20 to 30 plus million a year.
And you were talking about they're sort of particular about maybe the agents that they would take. I've never heard this before, and but I read this in this article. It said every agent we hire has to be, and this is from Robert Refkin. Is that his name?
That's the man right there.
He says every agent we hire has. This is quote. Every agent we hire has to be nominated and approved by 3 other agents.
That is true. That is true. And that's once again going back to how important culture is, because they don't want that toxic environment where people don't feel comfortable. I mean, this is not, you go into our office, no one is wearing a suit, and if they are wearing a suit, it's because they chose to. You have people in hats, you have people in t-shirts.
Yeah.
It is very tech savvy, it's very LA, it's very New York, it's very modern, up to date, and it allows you to be who you are.
The first time I went into a Compass office was at your office, and it wasn't to meet you, but
It's
it
an
was
awesome office.
It is.
It's
It
pretty
is.
cool.
It is a very cool office. First thing I thought was it reminded me of like a collaborative workspace, like really the upscale ones like the WeWorks and these other ones. It was very much, a lot of glass, a lot of which is we've seen that before, but I mean just these different little meeting spaces and different little rooms and very open concept, and not like when I was in real estate, which is everybody had offices with the doors and the walls and the cubicles up to the ceiling practically. So very different vibe, much more inviting.
It's very peaceful.
Yeah.
You can go take a nap in there sometimes.
Yeah, it was a very nice vibe. Another thing he says is my strategy was to provide that, and this is something that I remember being talked about when I was in an agent, but my strategy was to provide that for agents from the beginning. One example is the average agent has to log in to 11 different companies to do their job. We are rebuilding all the required tools our agents need in one system. Yep. Is that something that's come to fruition?
No, that is true. And every promise Robert's ever made, he's always kept. Ever since we first moved into Compass, everything he's ever said has always come true. And so, before Compass, I literally was spending $4,000 to $6,000 a month minimum on different types of software and logging in, like he was saying. And now, by the end of this year, it'll be one platform for all of us. And not just, it doesn't make our lives better, it makes the consumer's lives better, our seller, everyone's lives better in general, because it's more streamlined and easier and there's nothing lost.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
Well, in reading about this guy, he didn't seem like he had a tremendous background in real estate. He had done a couple of different things, but one of the reasons why that sort of inspired him to do this and get into this was I think he mentioned something about his mother was a real estate agent and went from firm to firm, always hoping she'd get the support that she needed and realize her dreams of providing. And she was a single mother, and so he saw this with his own in his own family with his mother not getting what she needed and wanted to change that, disrupt that space.
Yeah, and
he's certainly done it.
He's certainly done it. He certainly has.
Anything else notable to mention? They're talking about 20% market share in the top 20 cities by 2020, but it sounds like they're well on their way, or if not, maybe already achieved that.
I think we've actually, in the top 20 markets, we have achieved that.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, by 2020. Well, and that's next year, so you're ahead of the game.
Got to move fast.
Got to move fast. And then tell us about like the collaborative work environment. You've got your team, and so tell us a little bit about that. And
so one group is a very.
Do they encourage? Is that something that Compass encourages, or is it something that you?
Absolutely. We all are in Facebook Workplace, asking ideas, bouncing ideas off each other. The other day I was just sitting on my desk. Someone came by, asked me a question, I helped them out. We're always collaborating and talking about different things. The only way we're all going to be successful at the end of the day is if we collaborate without ego, which is one of our principles at the company. And it's true. There's no way we can know everything. And if we act like we know everything, then we're probably missing out on things that we should be knowing. But we don't have the courage to ask. So that has actually been very helpful, that environment.
Yeah, and I've met a couple of the folks on your team, and it's very much people from different backgrounds and different, they have all their own kind of expertise, and that really makes a difference, I think.
Yeah, so I mean, the reason why we did that was for that reason, because everyone on our team does come from a different, age, demographic, place in the world, and that way we can share things with each other like that I don't know about or they don't know about, and it really has excelled all our businesses to a whole new level.
Well, that's awesome. All right, well, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about some industry trends when it comes to real estate. This is the Working Title Show, normally with Zach Sams, but hosted today by Brendan Lewis.
You're doing a good job, buddy.
Thanks.
You're doing a great job.
You have joined us again at Working Title podcast. Working Title with normally Zach Sams, but this time it's with Brendan Lewis. So we're back, and we're still here with Harrison. He hasn't left yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm waiting on Zach.
Yeah, right.
Where's he, on the beach?
Yeah, probably.
Oh, that's good. He's got to get a tan,
He's got to get a tan.
Yeah.
If he's not careful, I might take this over.
I think you should. You're doing a fantastic job.
Okay, well,
it's huge.
He needs to hear
it's
that.
Huge.
It's huge.
It's a huge job that you're doing here.
Okay, so this segment, I want to talk about some interesting things. I'm always reading in the paper and listening on the news. Well, I don't watch the news a tremendous.
You read like a
amount, to be
physical
honest
paper,
with
or
you.
like you get online?
No. I read. I have the paper.
Wow, that's
Every
very,
day I
very
read-
old school of you.
I read the Wall Street Journal.
Ooh.
Yep. And anything of mention in here today? No, this wasn't a great day for the news.
Not a good day.
Taliban, no. But anyway, I do read the paper every day. I do try to stay up on the trends, and technology is a big part of our world these days. And now with it's coming into real estate. I always had the mindset that real estate was never going to change. It's been pretty much done the same way for the last as long as I've known. And
Correct.
And probably the biggest parts of it won't, but some of the ways that people connect and some of the ways that people facilitate these transactions might change. So we're going to go over a couple things I want to get your opinion on.
Oh, shit.
First thing is this is interesting. A recent Oxford study on artificial intelligence forecasts that 97 to 99% likelihood that real estate agents' jobs will be made obsolete, not within 30 years, but in the next decade. What do you think about that?
I mean, it's interesting. Like, a lot of people said, and obviously stockbrokers aren't around as much as they used to be, right? A lot of people that were really good at their jobs went into hedge funds. The other people went away due to E-Trade. There's always going to be, technology is coming, but there's so many things that go into this business that most people don't get. And a lot of that is not replaceable by machines. There are a lot of intangible values in a house, in the whole entire process that a machine cannot replicate. And for me, I find that interesting when people think that that's possible. And I think a lot of the times when they go with those kind of companies that or flat fees or just listing it online through some bot.
Let's not jump ahead. That's another
I'm a
topic.
jumper.
Yeah, don't jump.
I'm going to jump high.
But they talk about what's interesting is they in this article they use the by a website called biggerpockets.com. I feel like I should give them some credit here. But anyway, they talk about blacksmiths were out of work by 1920. That was like a major industry, and they were out of work. And as a result of it, the people who were blacksmiths then went into the automotive industry, which created a tremendous amount of jobs. So that's a little bit of, I don't know how much that relates to today, but it's an interesting analogy or comparison.
Sure.
One of the things they talked about, which is kind of interesting, is rent auctions. How are rents set? Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Rent auctions. A landlord or property manager guesses what the rent. This is what they're saying. How typical rents how they come up with them. But a South African startup launched a rental listing and management service that gives landlords the option to let prospective tenants bid on the rent. What do you think about that?
I think that's absolutely the dumbest thing I ever heard.
Why is that?
because you're going to get,
There
I
is
mean, the market.
just to clarify, there is a reserve set rent. This just sounds like
there is a reserve.
This sounds like eBay.
It is like eBay.
Yeah,
but I mean, that's a rental.
And it all pre-screened when they sign up for the service. Less desirable rentals units will receive lower or fewer bids. Higher demand units will generate more higher bids. Well, that seems pretty intuitive. But do you don't like this concept?
I mean, the market dictates price. So at the end of the day, if you're not showing it and exposing it to the entire market and you're just doing a quick, fast auction, then I think you're not getting the full amount that you should be getting.
Maybe it works in South Africa.
I have never been. I heard it's really pretty, though.
It's interesting. We're going to skip this topic and go back to it because it's a bigger one. But this is also along the lines of the rent. This is for people who maybe might have a bit dodgy credit history. High-risk rental applicants are simply turned away in today's market. However, a company called SparkRental.com is developing a system to deduct tenants' rent directly from their paycheck to alleviate the responsibility from this is cut off. But anyway, it's a win-win for both landlords and tenants. Landlords know they'll get paid on time every month and never have to hear the words checks in the mail again.
Well, unless if the person gets fired.
That was what I thought.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I thought. Tenants can be accepted for higher quality housing until they lose their jobs. And then you have to evict them.
Sorry.
Yeah, but I suppose anybody could lose their job.
That's true.
So, yeah. To sweeten the deal, even more for renters, their on-time payments are reported to credit bureaus to help them rebuild their credit. Actually, I don't mind this idea.
I think it's a good idea, for the renter, but maybe not for the landlord.
Maybe in areas that are not as desirable.
Yeah.
Where you're up and coming, perhaps. We could do that in Victory Park. Okay. One of the last topics we have is flat fee online real estate brokerages. I know you have a lot to say about this. Consider these questions. Does anyone need a real estate agent? Are the services they provide worth $10,000? If you're worth it, you should be getting paid more than $10,000, especially depending on the type of property or where it's located. But how are these sellers going to continue spending the kind of money to list and sell a property?
Yeah, I mean, that's back to the whole, do you understand the process? And a lot of people don't really get it, right? They just think everything is, let's just start with property values in general, okay? Most people want to go, okay, here's dollar per square foot, dollar per square foot, dollar per square foot, dollar per square foot. That's how we're going to get to a price. That is not how properties are valued, okay? Any top agent in town will tell you, we never go by dollar per square foot first. That is just a part of the formula. That's how we get to a basis, let's say, for example. So you have land value, positioning, the feel of the house, all these other things that go into that. Those flat fee people are hiring people out of college that have no real estate experience, have no market knowledge, cannot tell you what the other previous houses sold for or what they even looked like because they probably never even been there. They don't know the other brokers. They know absolutely nothing. All they're doing is saying, this house sold for X, so your house can sell for X, and let's see what happens.
We think this is maybe a fad?
I don't think it's a fad. I think in, some lower income housing markets, those models will work really well. I think in some high, super fast paced markets, they can work effectively, like San Francisco, where things fly off the shelf in 20 seconds. But I don't think they'll work in markets like Dallas, Chicago, Miami, New York, where you actually have to have knowledge.
I remember when I was getting into real estate, something similar to this, it sort of threatened, we thought was going to threaten our jobs, was things called, I don't know if they're even still around, but it's like Help You Sell. And it was like a franchise, I think. But you would basically go to this company as a homeowner, and you would buy like a package, and they'd list you on MLS. They'd give you a sign to put in your front yard. You would do the showings. It was basically for sale by owner. Okay. But you get into MLS and so this was something that was very popular, but people would wind up doing it, and then invariably they just decide this is more trouble than it's worth. We don't want to, I mean,
it's time value of money. I mean,
right.
An opportunity cost for the seller. If you're doing really well in your career, you're definitely not going to want to deal with time. Yeah, you just don't.
Yeah.
And if you do have the time, that's probably why you're selling.
Right. True. Very true. Another thing is, and I won't mention the company, but I had a conversation once with one of this. He was a C-level executive for one of these larger flat fee brokerages, and they had a great model. Everything seemed to sound appealing, but the problem is the one thing that I saw, if I was going to sell my home, I have never had an agent sell a home for me, actually, that I can think of, because I was an agent, but was that he told me that the person who answers the calls for like a lead, like a up desk type thing is what we used to call it, where you'd get a lead on the call, is a different person than who's going to show you the properties, is a different person than who's going to write the contract, is a different person than who's going to contract negotiation. It's like a different person all the way through. So just from that standpoint, like, that would drive me crazy. That's like remodeling your home and having to deal with a million different contractors, except it's so much less tangible, right? I mean, it's like, so that's kind of a problem that I would have with it, but that's just my 2 cents. The last thing that we'll touch on.
Well, because it's a personal business.
Right.
So most of these people,
it's a relationship. It's all about relationships.
And so your personal bankers, your doctors. It's not like when you go see your doctor, you don't want to see another doctor.
Right.
You chose that doctor because you trust that he specializes in whatever you're getting cured, and you don't go swap them out.
I think that there's probably a space for these people in the market. I think there absolutely are.
Yeah.
Probably the millennials, which I fall under, but probably millennials and certain individuals would assume just do this because
I think so. But I anytime anyone ever mentions it to me, I go, you're going to be just like my dad. You're going to fire your stockbroker, and you're going to E-Trade, and you're going to blow all my money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't have any more inheritance. It's very sad. Thank you, E-Trade.
Last thing we'll talk about which is something that they've been doing for a long time, but I thought this was just kind of interesting, is get your thoughts on it. More long distance related purchases with virtual reality. So we know now, like, we can do all these crazy things and hook our iPhones up to the, those goggles and all this stuff for, $20 you can buy them. But this will allow you to walk through the home and actually put your own furniture in it and all this kind of stuff. And that they think that people will buy homes sight unseen, or not necessarily sight unseen, but without seeing it with their own eyes in person. What do you think about that?
I think in major cities like New York, Hong Kong, Dubai, I would see people putting reservations on properties with that kind of tool, but I'm pretty sure they're going to want to get boots on the ground and actually probably go to the showroom and touch stuff.
Right.
That's a lot of cash.
So maybe pre-construction type
like
stuff.
pre-construction, you can get a resi on it, and that's about it.
Makes sense. And I think that's it.
That's all we got today?
That's all we got today. And so let's see, rent auctions, flat free broker, yep, we've gotten through it all. So thank you for being on the show today.
It's been awesome.
It's been my pleasure to have you here. And this has been the Working Title Show with Brendan Lewis. And we hope you join us again real soon.
See you soon, Zach. Enjoy the beach.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for subscribing to the podcast and listening today. I want to give a special thanks to Kensington Vanguard National Title of Texas. The show is sponsored by them, and Kensington Vanguard is a national title company with local people working here in Dallas-Fort Worth, specializing in commercial title insurance and residential title insurance. Kensington Vanguard will handle your escrow needs as well as your title insurance and your closing services. So you can go to the website at www.kv-lonestar.com to find our locations and our contact information. And we appreciate you using Kensington Vanguard National Title of Texas. We look forward to seeing you next week, where we will be talking about solar energy in the residential and commercial spaces. And we are really excited to hear about that. Something I wanted to know about, so I'm really excited to hear more about how that works. So we'll catch you next time on Working Title with Zach Sams. Thank you.